Cloud. I'm starting Facebook. It's booting up. We might go live a little bit quicker.
Okay.
Okay. And you're live, John.
Good Wednesday evening. You're listening to John Guy Saves the World in 30 minutes or less. I'm John Guy. I want to thank the Stables Network and Mark Mancini for this opportunity to solve a problem either faced here in the U.S. or in the world globally in 30 minutes or less. Tonight, we're going to be talking about opioid addiction and overdoses. It turns out that just a couple of years ago, there were more opioid overdose deaths in the United States, more than automobile accidents or firearm-related homicides. So we're talking 47,000 deaths in a year back in 2017, courtesy of opioids. Eli Ricevich is with us tonight. Hey, Eli. Let me unmute you. There we go. How you doing, buddy?
Doing.
No, I don't know. Anyway, Eli is from West Virginia originally, and there he is. Are you here?
I am here.
All right, good to have you. We're also going to be talking with Judge Will Thompson. He is the Boone County, West Virginia judge who runs the drug court and has been on NBC News, honored in Washington, D.C. West Virginia has the highest age-adjusted rate of drug overdose deaths involving opioids in the country. 49.6 deaths per every 100,000 people in the population. Now, here's the real interesting part. Eli, have you ever heard of Kermit, West Virginia?
No, sir.
It is in southern West Virginia.
Okay, that's where I'm from.
Down by your stomping grounds and my old stomping grounds. Kermit, West Virginia has a population of 400. And in 10 months, this year, 3 million prescription opioids were sent to the pharmacy in Kermit, West Virginia.
Yeah, that is absolutely insane. John, I tell you what drives me crazy about this problem is, I've had one knee replaced earlier this year and I just had the other one done. My insurance declined me my opioids for pain afterwards. They said I didn't present enough need. And, it's a result of people obtaining them who really don't need them. And all I did was get a joint cut out of my body. God forbid I get a week's worth of pain med.
10,000 pills a day.
Yeah, but see, that emphasizes part of this problem is that people who actually need them and don't abuse them, in an instance like me, I had to pay out of pocket because my insurance would decline it. So it's not just the opioid people; it's the people normal, I use the word normal loosely, but the normal people are also suffering, like myself. I mean, this damn thing hurt.
Yeah. And, you shift.
The judge is going to be on, because I need to ask him something about that county.
He is going to be on. He should be on, I would say, in the next 5 to 10 minutes.
One thing I'm curious, John, about the high rate of opioid deaths there is, I work, been a policeman for 29 years in a large Midwest city, million population.
Sure.
Unless I'm sitting right in front of an address or on that street, EMS is always going to beat me there. I wonder, in some of these rural counties in West Virginia, if lack of EMS and fire personnel is part of the reason they don't get a response quick enough, because I'm willing to bet almost all of those counties, and certainly those small towns and municipalities, have volunteer fire departments. And
Sure they do.
And I'm sure they've got one building in the entire county, maybe two. So, that's part of the problem we got to look at there is response. Do we train? Who else do we train to administer Narcan, et cetera?
I know the ambulance crew and the paramedics there in Boone County. I think that the real problem is that you've got a pharmaceutical company like McKesson Corporation who are sending 10,000 pills a day to a pharmacy in a town of 400. Now,
sure.
That being said, I know how West Virginians get the opioids. They take a church school bus, they pack them full of people, they drive down to Florida, they all get their oxy down there, come back on the church bus, and are paid for their prescription opioids. That's how they get them back into the county. Because, honest to Pete, until recently, the police would not stop a church bus. I mean,
yeah, I believe that. Old people and roadmasters, who's going to stop that guy?
That's right. That's right. And in West Virginia, 2 years ago, that's the latest stats, they had 833 drug overdoses in the state. And here's another sad fact. There are only two morgues, coroner's offices three in the state. You've got one up in Moundsville. You've got one in Charleston. You got one in Huntington. That's it.
Wow, so they're all north.
Basically, yes. So if you blow out your life in Mercer or McDowell County, you're in trouble. And it's because of this that one of the fastest growing jobs in West Virginia is to carry bodies to the morgues. The state has a fund and they will pay you, and there are people who are making thousands of dollars every month just running the dead people to the morgue in their station wagon or their pickup truck.
Well, they use SUVs here.
I mean, it's just absolutely crazy.
So what's West Virginia's Attorney General doing about this?
West Virginia has actually been a a front runner in suing pharmaceutical companies, which is step one. If there's a pharmaceutical company that's shipping 10,000 opioids a day to some little pharmacy in a town of 400, something's wrong with that picture. And at least West Virginia acknowledges that the pharmaceutical companies are sending way too many prescription drugs to God's country. Now, besides the fault of the pharmaceutical manufacturers, because, you know, let's face it, Eli, your last name is not Lilly.
I wish.
But, you know, it's the pharmaceutical companies that have a major responsibility that they're playing here. Besides that, there are no jobs in these counties. I know in Indiana, you look at Du Bois County. Nobody's got anything to do in Du Bois County. There aren't any jobs down there. And so it is very, very, I mean, it's a crisis in Indiana too. In these rural communities where they have, you know, my stepdaughter, for example, she worked at Franklin Central School District. And Franklin Central, she's had so many former students, all of a sudden, you know, they're dead. It's just real bad, real bad. I think we have the judge on the line. Here come the judge.
The judge is on the line.
Will Thompson of Boone County, West Virginia. And Your Honor, and I'll call you Will.
Call me Will. I'm not wearing a robe right now.
Thanks for joining us. What we're trying to do tonight is solve the opioid crisis in America, in Boone County, in West Virginia, in 30 minutes or less. Tell us how we can do it.
If I had that answer, I'd be making $1 million right now. The problem is so large and so overwhelming that you can't think in terms of trying to solve it for an entire city, county, state, whatever it might be. You literally have to solve it one person at a time. You have to work with them, get them clean, but it has such an overwhelming effect. Just getting one person clean means that not only does that affect them, it affects their parents, their family, their employer, their children, their children's children. It's pretty rough, but we've had a lot of good success with it lately.
You've told, yeah, go ahead, Eli.
Judge, I'm John's cohort here, Eli. I'm a native West Virginian. I reside in Indianapolis.
But where are you from originally, Eli?
Bluefield.
Okay, you're not too far. I'm about an hour and a half north of you.
Yeah. I've been a law enforcement officer in Indianapolis for 29 years. And a lot of the things you were talking about, our current mayor has implemented a lot of those changes. We're trying to address arrestees individually. We're concentrating on treatment rather than incarceration. And I think it's been moderately successful. We had to do it because our jails, lost several federal lawsuits because of our overcrowding. And, you know, a lot of people think locking people up and throwing the key away fixes the problem. Well, it doesn't. And I'm glad to hear that you have the same ideas as our mayor does, because I believe in the merits of those programs.
There is. And like I said, it's not a one-size-fits-all. I had a gentleman in front of me today, actually, who's been suffers from addiction for quite a period of time. Asked for a shot on probation, got a shot on probation, failed miserably. Came back in front of me today, and basically I said, well, I'm going to give you two choices. I'm going to put you in a treatment program that's going to last about a year, or I'm going to put you in prison for the next 7 years. Unfortunately, the gentleman chose to go to prison.
Did he really?
Yes.
7 years in prison rather than 1 year in rehab. Wow.
The reason I think, and there's a little bit of merit to it, he thought that, number one, he couldn't do it. He has tried some rehabs in the past and just not been successful. He's a little bit older than your typical person I deal with. You know, the typical person I deal with is between 18 and 30. He was probably early 40s, mid 40s. And just, I mean, it's sort of sad because they've just sort of given up. It's like, I can't do this. You know, I can't get clean. And if I get clean, I can't stay clean. And that's, you know, it's depressing. But on the other hand, I also had my drug court today, and I have about 12 individuals today who are working, who are getting their families back, who are, you know, their families are proud of them again, who, you know, 3 of them just recently got hired by our county to work for the county because they did such a good job on their community service that they're actually getting full-time jobs with the county. So you do get to see some success that way.
Judge, one of the things that I constantly hear expressed by the public here is, oh, we shouldn't pay for their treatment. We shouldn't do this. Then I tell them, look up the cost of incarcerating an individual for 6 months or a year. The treatment is much financially to the county and city's advantage.
You can't,
we've got to educate the public on items like that.
For me to put somebody through one of my drug courts, probably will cost, I think we did a cost analysis, it costs between like $5,000 to $8,000 a year to put that person through the drug court. If we lock them up, we're talking $30,000 a year plus to lock them up.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Minimum.
Yes, you know, and that's just you can't do that. And then, okay, you lock them up. Well, you know, short of them killing somebody or a horrendous sexual assault or something of that nature, they're going to get out. You know, they're going to get released. And the addiction doesn't fix itself in the jails, although we do have some wonderful programs that we're starting in actually in our jails and prisons. So they're working on recovery. But for the most part, they're going to come back out, still going to have addiction, still going to create, you know, horrible crimes on the community. You know, they tend to go up. You know, when you go to prison, you come back, your crimes tend to escalate rather than de-escalate. So if you don't fix it, it's either pay now or pay later.
And so many people in prison, I mean, let's be realistic. You can get drugs in prison, any kind of drugs you want.
I've had people I've put in prison before overdose in 2 weeks and die in the prison or jails.
Oh, my gosh.
We have, if I've got somebody in one of my drug court programs and I put them in jail for what we call a shocker, and it's generally 24 hours to a 7-day sentence, depending on what type of sanction they're facing.
And I've seen your jail, Judge. It's
not real cozy,
as pleasant. No.
No, not a cozy place. But we will actually go into the jails and drug screen them to make sure they're not using while they're in jail.
Wow.
And a lot of, basically my thought process there is if you use while you're in jail, your jail time doesn't count to me. You have to do it again. And they know that, and they start to learn, and it's like, we stop that. Now, some of it, a lot of tricks to the trade. If somebody knows they're going to jail, a lot of times they'll try to use a lot right before they go, thinking they can stay high throughout their duration or whatever of that nature. But to say that people are not getting it in jail is just completely untrue.
That is.
And it's they're very creative in the ways they get the things. I mean, some of it's just simple stuff where they're bribing the guards and stuff like that.
Sure.
But then there's a lot of what they're real creative how they get things in and out, and it's overwhelming. I mean, it's sad at times what they'll go to.
We'll do prison reform on another show and try to correct it. How's this for an idea? You can only get an opioid at a hospital.
I'll go for that, John.
You've got to
Now,
physically
I will
go
tell
in.
you that,
yeah.
I will tell you this, because I'm known as the anti-opioid judge in the state, and I catch a little bit of flack from that because, we've got to do a better job of educating our doctors, which I think we're getting there. I think that we're in a much better situation now than we were even 3 or 4 years ago. Opioids, when they were designed for end of life. They were designed for cancer patients. They weren't designed because my knee hurts or my back hurts or things of that nature. And a lot of your studies show that some of your more, they're not the most effective ways to even treat those type of pains. But I will say we are doing a better job. I would hate to say only for hospitals because, there could be somebody on hospice or something of that nature.
Sure.
End of life type of thing. You'd have to be careful how you say that. But yes, do I think we should restrict them more? Yes. Do I think we're doing a better job at that now? Yes, we are. I will say that. The medical community is doing, they're not there yet, but they're getting closer and they're understanding the problem. The problem you have with that is, say we get every doctor in the state of West Virginia to write opioids responsible. Well, let me tell you what happens. You still have a bunch of people who have addiction, and they're not going to stop overnight. So what do? They turn to heroin, and they turn to fentanyl, which is buying the drugs off the street. And that's when you start to see the overdose start to spike, because before, if they were buying an Oxy 80 off the street, that's the same Oxy 80, they've taken 100 times in the past, and they know how much they can take, and they know what effect it has. When you start buying the street drugs, the heroin and the fentanyl, you don't know what you're buying,
That's
and
right.
That's when you get the spike in overdoses.
I can remember actually calling in for a reservation to one of the local motels there in Boone County, and they assured me that I would get the room that had not been decontaminated for meth production.
Oh my God.
And I think that we know which motel we're talking about in Boone
Yes,
County.
I can tell you. I've dealt with those cases. Now meth is a completely different animal.
Yes, it is.
We are dealing. You talk about the opioid problem, and we still have it here. Don't get me wrong, but we have a much bigger problem now with methamphetamine.
Sure.
And it's a little bit scarier as a resident of Boone County. Here's why. There wasn't a lot of violence associated with the opioids. If you think about the effect that an opioid has on you, it sort of makes you drowsy, makes you, that's basically, it stops your heart, it slows your heart down, and that's how the people die.
Yeah.
Meth does the exact opposite. It speeds you up, gives you too much energy. What happens when people have too much energy? Number one, they walk around all the time, so we're now starting to think we have a homeless population. We do to a certain extent, but it's more of just we've got people who are up, 72 hours, 96 hours at a time, and what do? They just walk, and they're paranoid while they walk. So they look scary, and they are scary. But the biggest problem is it also, because of the paranoia and because of the increased energy, that increases the violence. We would go years here in Boone County without a stabbing death. You would see some type of fight in a bar or something, there'd be a stabbing or something of that nature, or a domestic incident that really went bad. Now we're getting stabbings and several deaths on I don't want to say quite a monthly basis, but it's probably 6 to 10 a year. And it's just because they're so paranoid and so hyped up on the meth that it's just increasing the violence. We're getting home invasions and things of that nature. So it's not quite the level of the people dying of overdoses, although they are overdosing and dying on it. It's the after effects of it where they're going out and becoming more violent and attacking people and things of that nature. So
Right.
methamphetamine is pretty scary.
Yeah. And for those listening at home, all you have to do is go on YouTube, type in the wild, wonderful whites of West Virginia, and you will see just
Oh my
Yes.
God, I remember
exactly
that.
how
I remember
crazy.
that.
I mean, the problem is, I haven't lived in Boone County for, 30 some years. And yet I can still tell you to this day where Jesco White lives. And
Yeah.
that shouldn't be.
Now, I will say some of that family's calming down a little bit as they get older. Jessica's getting a little bit older now. And Mamie's calming down quite a bit, too. And I will say they took a lot of dramatic license with that filming.
They did.
It's not
They
quite
did.
as wild as that. And they acted a little bit for it. But there's a grain of truth to a lot of that.
There is. It's southern West Virginia. It is what it is, I guess.
What's really
is what
bad
you say.
It's a lot. I watched that with my wife, who's not from Boone County, and it's like, yeah, I knew every single one, and I can tell you a lot more interesting stories about them than what was shown.
That's right. Yeah.
So it is sad, and now I will say that some of those people in that movie have turned out a lot better. Some of the kids have made some good decisions in their lives, and some of those decisions include leaving the county, which for them is the best thing they can make, while others are not making such good decisions.
Judge, you mentioned young people, and I'm an old guy. I'm in my 60s. Honest to goodness, we've got to start education and re-education of these people very young. I don't think junior high is too young to start.
I have middle schoolers who abuse and use methamphetamine.
Exactly, and that's the age. That's the junior higher. That's my opinion. Yes. That's the age we've got to start.
That's I haven't. The youngest I've seen is about 10 years old that's used.
Wow.
Now generally they're in a family where everybody in the family is using, and it's just a way of life. But about age 12 to 13 is when people start separating themselves somewhat. And I hate to say it starts at home. Some of these homes that the kids are in are just, deplorable. Couldn't even describe it. They're so bad.
Yeah.
I've got 4 kids. They range in age from 18 to 9. And the fact that they go to school with these kids, and every kid's have their struggles, and it's like the other night, my one in middle school was struggling with some type of scientific equation, and I'm thinking, okay, here you've got 2, college level plus parents, and we're not struggling with the science, but it's taking some time, don't get me wrong. Well, how do these kids do it where they've got one parent who's blown out either on pills or meth, and didn't even fix some food, or is there any food in the house? How do they get their homework done? And it's really sad. I mean, it's the generation here that's growing up now. There used to always be, and John can probably attest to this, there's always the haves and the have-nots, and it's a little bit multiplied in Boone County. But now it's becoming incredible difference between the haves and have-nots, and it's depressing.
What kind of unemployment rate are you looking at there in Boone County?
It's not as bad as you think, but there's a lot of what I call underemployment.
Sure.
If a person can show up every day and pass a drug screen on the initial hire, I'm not even saying passing the drug screen after they're hired, just on the initial hire, there's work for them. They could work tomorrow. But a lot of the work is not quite minimum wage level, but not enough to raise a family on, work level in like the $10 to $15 an hour jobs, which is, you might be able to do if you're living by yourself, but when you start talking about family and things of that nature,
Sure.
you just can't do it.
The $70,000 a year coal mining jobs are gone.
They are not completely gone, but there's not many of them. And the people who have them appreciate the fact they have them, and they realize they could be gone tomorrow,
Sure.
There's a lot of the jobs, fast food industry, the service industry, and things of that nature. And part of that's due to the drug epidemic, just because, you've got the people who should be doing that work, your 18 to 25-year-olds, they're all on pills or meth, so those jobs exist. The people in my drug court programs, you think they would have an incredibly hard time finding jobs. No, every single one of them is employed. We don't let them work for like the first 4 months of the program. We want them to focus on being clean. And after that, we want them to work. And unless there's some other type of disability, and we do have a couple participants that have that, they all work. They get a job, easy, because the employers know that they're going to show up, they're going to be clean. And so it's not an unemployment problem. There is a lot of underemployment problems here as far as, just being able to get a job that's going to make, enough to raise a family on.
Sure. Well, we're going to have to close it down. It's only a 30-minute show. I want to thank Eli and Judge. Happy birthday!
Well, thank you. I turned 50 today, so hey, I guess I'm one of these
Yes,
old
you
guys.
did.
Judge is a kid.
Yeah,
He's still a baby, Eli.
Makes me feel better.
I want to thank you both for being on, and we'll talk again. Absolutely.
Let me know. I enjoyed it. Let me know.
Thanks, Will.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Eli. And
Alrighty.
that's gonna wrap it up for another Wednesday night. And we'll come up with something for next Wednesday to boot. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening. Thanks, Mark Mancini. That'll be it for tonight. Bye-bye now. Okay, you still with us? We had Boone County drug court judge, and so we had
she was ready to go out with me once, so I just sat
okay.
down.
Okay. I would think. Oh, and if you want to get some ice cream, man, after bed, that's fine.
Okay.
Whatever. Judge, how can you talk about opioid? Well, here's the thing the judge was saying. He had a guy in his court and he got an offer. He got to pick 1 year in rehab or 7 years in prison, and he picked prison. He had a choice. He had a choice with this judge. Yeah, the judge gave him the choice, and this judge is this was a guy that failed at drug court. No, the guy failed in drug court, the program, and so the judge gave him the choice. You're still using, therefore you either have to go to rehab or prison. You choose. The guy chose prison because he can still get drugs in a prison. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Body weights you down. I think great.
Right.
It takes many. They need to get back up to school. Wait. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
a year later, down to 150. Trying to get them on drugs. On drugs for 5 months. Still not great.
Right.
If he's down, way under his weight.
Right.
That much control of his body.
Yeah. The pizza doesn't know that good?
John,
Huh?
he said he ate 40 pieces in 30 days. So
Yeah.
they destroyed my. He was sick.
They weren't that good, huh?
No. It's always in the franchise.
But the Hawaiian Punch was okay. Huh?
Oh, I have you'll see around.
What time you going? Getting up tomorrow?
I believe them at 8.
All right. There you go.